substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others.
Royal tensions are at an all-time high, and this time, Prince William isn't backing down. In a stunning move that's left palace insiders whispering he's reportedly cut Queen Camilla out of his late mother, Princess Diana's cherished charity awards. Was this a quiet rebellion, or a loud message meant to defend Diana's legacy once and for all? Behind those perfect royal smiles, there's a storm brewing, one that could shake the monarchy's fragile peace to its core. But what exactly pushed William to take such a bold step? The answer traces back to one of the darkest chapters in royal history, the BBC interview scandal. It was June 2021. The world suddenly turned its eyes to Buckingham Palace, and tension rippled through every royal hallway. Something huge had just broken, something that ripped open old wounds. The BBC had just accepted the results of Lord Dyson's explosive investigation, and what came out shocked everyone. The report exposed that the iconic 1995 panorama interview with Princess Diana, the one that changed royal history, wasn't obtained honestly. It was built on deception, fake documents, and manipulation. BBC journalists had tricked Diana into speaking her truth, using lies to earn her trust. That interview, watched by millions, had been tainted from the start. When the truth finally came out, it hit like a thunderbolt. Soon after, Prince William appeared before cameras outside Kensington Palace. He looked visibly shaken, his eyes heavy with pain, frustration, and something deeper, determination. As he began to speak, his calm tone couldn't hide the emotion simmering beneath. He said it was right that the BBC accepted the investigation's findings, but he didn't stop there. He went further, laying bare the betrayal that had haunted his family for decades. BBC employees lied and used fake documents to get the interview with my mother, he stated, his voice steady but filled with weight. Those words echoed across the world, from London's busy streets to screens everywhere. For William, this wasn't just another royal controversy. It was personal. The loss of his mother had never stopped hurting, and now the revelation forced him to relive her deepest pain all over again. He spoke of how much she suffered, not only from relentless media pressure, but also from betrayal by those she thought she could trust. Those lies had scarred her, and the damage extended to her sons and the monarchy itself. The moment William spoke, headlines erupted like wildfire. The world remembered Diana, her compassion, her heartbreak, her tragic end. And in that moment, one thing became clear. William wasn't just speaking for his mother's memory. He was protecting it. He was drawing a line no one, not even the crown, would be allowed to cross again. But William's message wasn't just aimed at the BBC. It carried something much deeper. Behind every word were years of bottled-up sadness, anger, and frustration over how his mother's story had been twisted, retold, and sensationalized without compassion. He'd watched the world profit off Diana's pain for decades, and this time, he wasn't going to stay silent. Traditionally, the royal family keeps their emotions locked away, polished behind palace walls. But this moment broke that rule completely. Even Queen Elizabeth was said to be deeply unsettled by what had been uncovered, realizing the gravity of the betrayal against Diana. Yet Prince Charles stayed silent, maybe because he knew just how tangled and painful this story truly was. His silence spoke volumes. As days turned into weeks, the conversation refused to fade. News outlets replayed clips, experts dissected every detail, and the internet was flooded with debates. William's response to Lord Dyson's report revealed a truth that no amount of royal decorum could hide. The wounds inside the monarchy were still open. After all these years, Diana's story wasn't at peace. Her legacy was still being fought over. From that point on, William's mission became clear. Between 2021 and 2024, he quietly began taking calculated steps to guard his mother's memory. He immersed himself in her causes, especially the Diana Award, an organization that celebrates young people making a difference, just like she did. But for William, this wasn't about publicity or duty. It was about love, loyalty, and justice. He wanted the world to remember his mother not as a tabloid headline, but as the woman she truly was. Compassionate, brave, and dignified. Every move he made echoed one message loud and clear. Diana's legacy will be protected, no matter what. But William's message wasn't just aimed at the BBC. It carried something much deeper. Behind every word were years of bottled-up sadness, anger and frustration over how his mother's story had been twisted, retold and sensationalized without compassion. He'd watched the world profit off Diana's pain for decades, and this time he wasn't going to stay silent. Traditionally, the royal family keeps their emotions locked away, polished behind palace walls. But this moment broke that rule completely. Even Queen Elizabeth was said to be deeply unsettled by what had been uncovered, realizing the gravity of the betrayal against Diana. Yet Prince Charles stayed silent. Maybe because he knew just how tangled and painful this story truly was. His silence spoke volumes. As days turned into weeks, the conversation refused to fade. News outlets replayed clips. Experts dissected every detail, and the internet was flooded with debates. William's response to Lord Dyson's report revealed a truth that no amount of royal decorum could hide. The wounds inside the monarchy were still open. After all these years, Diana's story wasn't at peace. Her legacy was still being fought over. From that point on, William's mission became clear. Between 2021 and 2024, he quietly began taking calculated steps to guard his mother's memory. He immersed himself in her causes, especially the Diana Award, an organisation that celebrates young people making a difference, just like she did. But for William, this wasn't about publicity or duty. It was about love, loyalty, and justice. He wanted the world to remember his mother not as a tabloid headline, but as the woman she truly was, compassionate, brave, and dignified. Every move he made echoed one message loud and clear. Diana's legacy will be protected, no matter what. The Diana Award, founded in 1999, just 2 years after her heartbreaking death, has grown into one of the most respected honours in the United Kingdom. Its purpose is simple but powerful: to celebrate young people across the world who embody the values Diana lived by: kindness, compassion, and the courage to make the world better. Each year, the event draws global attention, not only from her devoted admirers, but from young dreamers everywhere hoping their acts of goodwill earn this incredible recognition. These youth aren't just doing small deeds, they're standing up to bullying, fighting for mental health, protecting the planet, and lifting up their communities. Over the years, the Diana Award has evolved into a movement, one that catches the eye of world leaders, celebrities, and humanitarians. But for Prince William, this isn't just a royal engagement to tick off his calendar, it's something deeply emotional. A personal vow to keep his mother's light burning bright. Those close to him say William pours his heart into every single detail. He doesn't just show up for the cameras. He dives in. He reads about each recipient's story, learns about their challenges, their victories, and the difference they've made, exactly like Diana once did when she met people in need. Every story reminds him of her warmth, her empathy, and her fearless ability to make anyone feel seen. As the December 2024 Diana Awards approached, the halls of Kensington Palace buzzed with quiet energy and emotion. William and his team spent long hours reviewing each nominee's background, making sure every award truly reflected Diana's spirit. According to palace insiders, he was deeply moved by these young changemakers. To him, they weren't just winners. They were living proof that his mother's influence still pulsed through the world. But this year's ceremony carried an extra layer of tension and pain. New revelations about how the BBC deceived Princess Diana during her infamous 1990s interview had resurfaced, reopening wounds William had tried to heal for years. The scandal reignited his fury and sadness, making his mission crystal clear: protect her legacy at all costs. With those emotions weighing heavy on him, William became even more cautious about planning the event, especially the guest list. In past years, the invitations stretched across the royal family to show unity in honouring Diana's memory. Even Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, had attended quietly, her presence kept respectful and carefully managed due to the complicated history between her and Diana. But 2024 was different. Insiders revealed there was a growing unease surrounding whether Camilla should be there this time. The decision carried more emotional weight than anyone could admit out loud. With the BBC scandal back in headlines and the monarchy's image already under scrutiny, inviting Camilla suddenly felt risky. Behind palace doors, there were hushed meetings, cautious debates, and subtle hints that a major change was coming. It wasn't just another ceremony, it was shaping up to be a statement, one that could draw a sharp line between the past and the present. And William, protective as ever, was ready to make that statement loud and clear. No one would rewrite his mother's story again. Prince William personally went through every single name on the guest list, line by line, invitation by invitation. He wasn't leaving a single detail to chance. This year's Diana Awards had to be perfect, pure, focused, and free from drama. The recent BBC scandal had reopened painful memories, reminding him that his mother's story was still raw, still sacred, and still deeply personal. So, he became extra cautious, determined that nothing, and no one, would take away from the true purpose of the ceremony. Even though Camilla had spent years rebuilding her public image, her link to Diana's pain could never truly disappear. For William, this wasn't about royal etiquette or political strategy. It was about dignity, respect, and protecting the memory of the woman who had shaped his entire heart. He wasn't acting as a future king now. He was acting as a son. By November 2024, rumours began to swirl through palace corridors and online tabloids. Camilla might not be attending. The royal press offices stayed completely silent, refusing to confirm or deny. But behind the scenes, insiders whispered about tense private meetings and uncomfortable phone calls. William, calm but firm, made his stance crystal clear. This ceremony wasn't about the monarchy, it was about Diana, her compassion, her legacy, and the young changemakers carrying her light forward. Leaving Camilla off the guest list was a massive move, one that broke from royal tradition entirely. Never before had such a bold decision been made. But for William, it wasn't about creating conflict. It was about protecting purity. He wanted this moment untouched by tension or controversy, a true reflection of who his mother was and what she stood for. As the palace quietly adjusted the seating arrangements, guest protocols, and formalities, it became obvious William was stepping into a new kind of leadership. Gone was the prince who once prioritized royal image above all else. Now, he was driven by emotion, sincerity, and truth, even if it meant shaking the palace walls in the process. By the time the 25th annual Diana Award approached, royal watchers and journalists were on edge. Would Camilla's absence really become official? Would it set a daring new precedent for future royal events? Or would the palace scramble for a last-minute compromise to keep the peace? The anticipation was electric. To truly understand the weight of William's decision, we need to rewind the clock to the beginning of a story filled with love, betrayal, and heartbreak. Because the connection between Camilla Parker Bowles and Princess Diana isn't just about two women, it's about how their tangled lives shook the foundations of the British monarchy and left emotional scars that still echo through the royal family today. Their connection was far deeper than just friendship. It was romance, pure and undeniable. But everything changed when Charles left to serve in the Royal Navy. While he was away, Camilla moved on, at least on paper. In 1973, she married Andrew Parker Bowles, stepping into a new life, yet her heart never truly let go of Charles. Behind closed doors, that spark between them quietly stayed alive, hidden, whispered about, but never forgotten. Then came 1981, the fairy tale wedding that the world couldn't stop talking about. Lady Diana Spencer marrying Prince Charles. The nation watched in awe as the shy kindergarten teacher turned princess glided down the aisle in her ivory gown, the picture of grace and innocence. To the public, it looked like a dream, a royal love story for the ages. But behind those palace gates, reality was painfully different. Diana soon realized that something was off. The man she thought would love her forever still had a piece of his heart tied to someone else. Camilla. Imagine that heartbreak. You're living in a palace, wearing a crown, yet you're the loneliest woman in the world. Throughout the 1980s, the cracks in their marriage widened. The smiles in public became harder to fake. The pressure of royal life was suffocating, and Diana, though adored by millions, was quietly falling apart inside. Everyone wanted the picture-perfect princess, but what they didn't see was her pain, the betrayal that lingered in every quiet glance between Charles and Camilla. No matter how hard Diana tried to hold her head high, she could feel the truth. And then came the night that changed everything. In 1989, during a birthday party hosted by Camilla's sister Annabelle Elliott, Diana made a shocking decision. She showed up uninvited. That night, she walked right up to Camilla and confronted her. According to her former bodyguard, Ken Worf, Diana was calm, but fearless. She looked Camilla straight in the eyes and said, "Please don't treat me like an idiot. I know what's going on." Camilla's response, cold, composed, and cutting. She told Diana, "You've got 2 wonderful boys." That one sentence hit like a dagger. It wasn't just dismissive, it was a reminder that, despite Diana's royal title, she wasn't the one Charles truly loved. That moment shattered any illusion left of the fairy tale, but it was also a turning point. For the first time, Diana had spoken her truth, out loud, without fear. The confrontation didn't end the pain, but it gave her power. From then on, she refused to stay silent. As the early 1990s unfolded, the world began to see glimpses of her struggle, the quiet sadness of a woman trapped in a marriage built on duty, not devotion. But time doesn't erase every wound. Even as William matured into a future king, the shadows of the past still followed him. Every photograph, every article that compared Diana to Camilla, every headline that revisited that triangle, it all stayed with him. Yet, William learned to rise above it. He built a life defined by purpose, not pain. He found strength in Catherine, who, much like his mother, brought warmth and humanity into the royal family. Still, whenever the Diana Award came around, that old ache returned. It wasn't just another event on the royal calendar. It was her legacy, her compassion, her spirit, alive in the faces of the young people being honoured. That's why, as plans for the 2024 ceremony began, William felt a deep responsibility. He didn't just want to host the event, he wanted to protect it. This was sacred ground, a space where Diana's memory could breathe freely, untainted by the complexities of royal politics. Behind palace doors, quiet discussions started about the guest list. Advisors suggested keeping tradition, inviting senior royals, including Queen Camilla. But for William, the idea struck a nerve. How could he allow the woman who had caused his mother so much heartache to sit in a front-row seat at an event celebrating her life's work? It wasn't about anger, it was about principle. Those close to him say William struggled with the decision. He wanted to avoid public drama, but deep down, he knew the truth. Some moments are too sacred to compromise. As the date drew near, subtle changes began to appear. Certain invitations weren't sent. Others were quietly withdrawn. No public announcement, no explanation, just silence. Inside royal circles, whispers grew louder. Would Camilla be left out? If she was, it would be the boldest royal move in decades, a symbolic stand by a son still protecting his mother's name. And while the palace remained silent, one thing became clear. This Diana Award would be different. It would be raw, emotional, and perhaps more honest than ever before. The atmosphere was both beautiful and heavy. Every speech, every tribute, carried an undertone of reverence, not just for Diana, but for what she represented. As guests arrived, one detail did not go unnoticed. Queen Camilla was nowhere to be seen. Her absence, though not publicly addressed, spoke volumes. Within minutes, speculation began to spread across social media and news outlets. Where is Queen Camilla? Was she deliberately excluded? Reporters exchanged glances, knowing this was no mere oversight. The palace press office, prepared for such questions, released a carefully worded statement noting that the Queen had a prior engagement, but for royal watchers, that explanation rang hollow. Behind closed doors, senior courtiers were tense. This was uncharted territory. Never before had such a symbolic divide been displayed so quietly, yet so powerfully. By choosing not to include Camilla, William had made a statement. Not in anger, but in principle. This was his mother's night, and no title, no tradition would stand in the way of that. As William took the stage, the audience rose to their feet. His speech began softly, but his words carried emotional weight. My mother believed in the power of kindness, in the strength of compassion, and in the courage to stand up for what is right, even when it isn't easy. Those who listened could feel the layers beneath his message. It wasn't just a tribute, it was a declaration, a son reaffirming his mother's place in history, unshaken, unforgotten. Throughout the night, Diana's presence was everywhere. Her favourite flowers, white roses, lined the stage. The award recipients spoke about how her story had inspired their missions to help others. And when the event concluded, the crowd erupted into applause that seemed to last forever. Outside, as cameras flashed and commentators whispered about Camilla's absence, William remained composed. Those close to him later said he felt at peace. For the first time in years, he had done exactly what his heart told him was right. Behind the palace walls, however, the atmosphere was far from calm. King Charles, ever mindful of the monarchy's fragile balance, found himself caught between understanding his son's emotions and maintaining royal unity. To the public, he projected grace and restraint, but privately, those close to him noticed the quiet tension in his demeanour. He understood why William had made this choice, perhaps even sympathised with it, yet he knew the implications it carried. For Camilla, the decision struck a personal chord. Though she had worked tirelessly over the years to rebuild her public image and earn acceptance within the royal family, this moment reminded her that forgiveness and full inclusion were not the same thing. Sources close to her described her as visibly hurt but composed. She spent the evening at Clarence House, avoiding the cameras and headlines, aware that her absence was now the story. Inside the palace, senior aides debated whether to issue a clarifying statement, but Charles decided against it. Silence, he reportedly said, is sometimes the only dignified response. He knew that any public defense of Camilla could risk overshadowing the very event William had tried to protect. Meanwhile, for William, the night felt deeply personal, not as an act of defiance, but as an act of devotion. As he looked across the audience filled with young changemakers inspired by his mother's work, he saw the reflection of everything Diana had stood for: empathy, courage, and truth. In that moment, it no longer mattered who wasn't there. After the event, he was seen briefly speaking to his father. The exchange appeared polite but distant. Charles placed a hand on his son's shoulder, a small, quiet gesture of understanding, though both men knew the underlying tension wouldn't fade overnight. In the days that followed, headlines around the world dissected the decision. Some praised William for his loyalty and emotional authenticity, calling it a touching tribute from a son who never forgot his mother. Others questioned whether it would deepen the quiet rift within the royal household. But William remained silent. He had no interest in clarifying, defending, or explaining. For him, the message was already clear. Love for his mother would always come before royal appearances. Those close to him described him as fully aware of the implications of his choice, both within the royal family and in the public eye. To William, this wasn't about causing conflict. It was about being emotionally honest. By excluding Camilla, he made it clear that his mother's legacy needed to remain free from any lingering controversies. Throughout the ceremony, William honoured the young recipients with warmth and sincerity, highlighting their courage, kindness, and leadership. His speech centered on his mother's compassion and her lifelong desire to create meaningful change in the world. This message resonated deeply with the audience, both those present at the event and the millions watching around the globe. It was a clear reminder that Diana's values, so central to William's personal identity, would remain a guiding force in his vision for the monarchy's future. After the ceremony, media commentators analysed every detail of William's tribute to his mother. While they praised his emotional authenticity, Camilla's absence continued to dominate the discussions. In the weeks that followed, royal experts debated the deeper implications of William's actions. Buckingham Palace remained silent, but privately, it was clear that William's decision had sparked significant reflection. Camilla, sources said, respected his choice, understanding that some emotional wounds needed time and distance to heal. King Charles, on the other hand, carefully navigated the situation, balancing his support for his son with acknowledgement of Camilla's position within the royal family. By the end of 2024, the Diana Award continued to grow globally, with William's genuine commitment to his mother's legacy at the forefront. Young recipients often spoke about how his actions had inspired them. As 2025 approached, one thing became undeniable. Prince William's leadership style had begun to reshape public expectations. His actions proved that emotional openness could coexist with royal tradition, transforming the monarchy's image and paving the way for a future built on compassion, sincerity, and truth. So, what do you think about Prince William's bold decision regarding Camilla during his mother's awards ceremony? Was it an act of love, or a moment of quiet defiance? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more royal insights and untold stories.